So first of all, I'd just like to acknowledge you all and thank you all for just taking the time out to be with us here tonight for this exciting webinar where science truly meets spirituality. And this is a time more than ever because we've all been in such changing times at the moment. And we're so blessed to have these new tools that are emerging that are able to support us, you know, and keep our energy strong within these turbulent times. And first, I'd really like to thank you, Mike, for being with us here tonight and for sharing your wisdom. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mike. So Mike Curley is one of the co-founders of Metagenics of Health World Australia, and he's formulated over 400 Metagenic products. And he's also brought microcurrent frequency technology into Australia over 20 years ago, also supporting not only clients, but also doctors in personal nutrition and also in frequency medicine. And Mike, you're also studying at the moment, doing a PhD in quantum medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
In my spare time.
So I just want to thank you, and I feel really honoured that you're able to share your wisdom with us all here tonight.
Yeah, my pleasure to help.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, thank you again for being available, making the effort to grow and to learn. And this is important. As Nat said, at this time, we are having increased challenges, but we're getting through them. But whenever we go into a bit of a rough spot, we need to develop those skills and learn what's important to us so we can focus on, you know, appreciating the life that we have. And so tonight's all about that. How do we get more out of life? How do we gain back the power that we have given away? To gain back power to take back control of our health, and through the use of our own conscious energetic medicines that we can generate within our own body and our own consciousness, we can heal ourselves. And there's some great new technologies that are now going to assist us in that process to be able to, more than ever before, take control back of our healing process and empower us and give us that ability and responsibility to be in control of that issue of our life. So without further ado, the question that everyone always has deep within them, who am I? And so because we're talking about energy medicine, it's really an understanding of that could be quite new and people haven't been exposed to before. And it basically looks at us being an energetic, multi-dimensional being, a spirit having a physical experience. As this diagram here points out, where we see that the light's visible light is being broken down into its fundamental wavelengths of different colors. We exist of different wavelengths of energy. So let's explore who we are. So are we just a lump of meat with some bones and some nerves and some organs? Maybe. What makes this stuff? If we keep going, we find if we go further, we find that everything's made of cells. Different types of cells, blood cells, intestinal cells, nerve cells, muscle cells. In fact, we're a collection of about 50 trillion cells. We're a community, all working together as one, which is quite mind-blowing. But when we delve further, what are cells made of? And we go down, we see that cells are made of molecules and atoms. And atoms are composed of electrons and neutrons and protons. And these are the subatomic particles that make up everything. But if we actually go deeper, if we go into the subquantum area, we find that everything exists as a waveform, an energy, which has a particular frequency. And so at the very heart of everything, we are actually nothing except energy. as we interact with these waves with what we call the 0-point field or the quantum field, which results in the transfer of information backwards and forwards with the waves that are crossing the field. And as the waves go into the field, they create a quantum holographic response. And that quantum holographic response results in the manifestation of matter with different qualities. You've probably all seen how you can make a hologram with different lasers. Well, in a sense, we're a holographic projection of the quantum field. And it's being expressed to us as a solid matter to our senses. But in actual fact, we are deeply full of space made of energy fields which fluctuate at different frequencies. And it's the frequencies which have different shapes, different forms, and they carry all the information which is relevant for the particular molecule or for that atom or for that organ or for that tissue, for that person. Everything has a resonant frequency. All components have a quantum hologram which resonates as a waveform and interacts with the quantum field instantaneously. And you think about it, how do 50 trillion cells operate every chemical reaction instantaneously from 1 second to the next? It's by virtue of a quantum holographic data information exchange, like an instantaneous internet that's sending signals instantaneously, faster than the speed of light, which is what we refer to as a quantum event. So we are an amazing miracle of a quantum device interacting with these energy fields and fluctuating, producing different frequencies. Some of these frequencies are positive and other ones are not so positive. Some are useful for enhancing health and others are actually disease creating. So if we can get our handle around what these frequencies and energies are doing, if we can recognize that we're just not a lump of meat, that we're this incredible multi-dimensional energetic being, then that opens up a whole new paradigm of our relationship to who we are and how we relate to our existence and reality at that point. And a very smart man that you've all heard of agrees with this. He says that everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can only be, there can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. So what we see is that there's a bridging here of spiritual concepts from philosophy and science in the form of quantum mechanics, and how these two interact, in the sense saying that what Albert is calling energy and frequencies, in the past we used to call spirit and soul. And so it's really just another way of expressing the same thing. And we have to sort of realize that all these things are coming together and are expression of the one truth and the one reality. So, you know, matter is merely energy in a very low state of vibration, so it appears solid to our senses. The frequencies carry the information about whatever the particle or the object is. And so we need to learn some new rules. We need to have new wisdom about how to play the game of life, which is not just the chemical life, it's the energy life. And if we don't know the rules, if we don't actually know how are we made up of these different energy structures and how they work and how do we get the most out of them, then we can't really play the game of life very effectively. And we're going to actually get wrecked if we don't know the rules. And unfortunately, life has a way of teaching you the rules of energy, and it's called suffering. So if you don't awaken to your understanding of your divine multidimensional nature, it tends to hit you in the head and wakes you up with some type of suffering. And, you know, that's not a particularly pleasant way of learning about the rules. Wouldn't it be great if we actually figured out the rules first and we could apply those rules and we could grow? And as we grew in our soul's evolution, we didn't have to go through such climactic suffering episodes to smash us down and awaken us to who we are. So much about our identity has to be unmade so that we can create a new identity which is based on this energy, you know, concept of model that we are. So this model that we're talking about is a 12th dimensional model of realities. And these 12 dimensions are fundamental in many different philosophies and in physics. So Burkhard Hayem, who was a physicist who was helped, he's now passed away, but he helped create a unified theory of quantum physics, which included the human consciousness, and which explains a lot of the abnormalities that people see in quantum mechanics. And so what he found was that we live in, at this moment of space-time, in the 3rd and 4th dimensions. And above that, we have the 5th dimension, which is the mental field, the field of mental energy. The 4th dimension, where time is also interplaying, is also what we call the astral emotional dimension. So we have the 4th dimension, which is emotional energy, meaning the emotions that we create have a different type of frequency. And we can't see them, just like we can't see the fact that we're getting signals to our mobile phone, or we're getting radio signals transmitted, or TV signals coming into our screen. We can't see them, but those emotional energies are being emitted from us out into a particular dimension of consciousness. The 5th dimension is the mind and the mental activity, the thoughts and the beliefs that we create. They all have their own band of frequencies. And then in the 6th dimension, we go into what we call the soul, which is the immortal soul, which continues to live on based on the accumulation of all of the positive energy that's been generated in a particular lifetime is stored in the soul, and it becomes like a record, a library of everything that's ever happened. And each of these levels of consciousness contain a lot of data and information. And this particular one here, this shows you that this is like a step ladder of consciousness, where these numbers represent the frequency or the consciousness level or the energy level of different emotions and thoughts and beliefs. So we start off as a low consciousness person down here in the 3rd dimension, where we are more of a victim or abuser. We migrate up through development of our different aspects of our emotional intelligence to the 4th dimension, where we learn that we actually have creative influence over what we create in our reality. And then as we go up above the level of 400, we enter into a new sort of heightened level of mental awareness, where we start to incorporate inner wisdom. And we finally reach up here at the level of 500, the level of love, the experience or the concept of true love. And as that progresses, we go further up the scale until we reach the 6th dimension, which is the area of the soul, where we see, call it the I am presence, which relates to the consciousness of unity of love and the unity and compassion that is expressed in a non-judgmental, non-attached way. And as you progress further up, you enter into higher states of expanded consciousness up until the 12th dimension, where you're a fully realized, ascended master, such as, Jesus Christ and those Buddha and those people. So this is the ascension process of how consciousness increases, and our job is to basically try and remove the blockages that are stopping us from allowing to raise our vibration, to access these higher dimensions of love and unity and peace and joy and oneness and bliss. So why does that relate to us? Okay, it's not some spiritual philosophical talk. It's simply that, think of it that you're in a big high-rise building, and at the moment you're on the basement and you've got a very limited view of what's going on in your world. And then somebody says, hey, look, come up to the next level, you know, you can have a better look. And you see that with every person and in every situation, with every problem or circumstance, it can be seen from a higher level of consciousness. And what we're saying is that we can evolve up the building, up the levels. And the higher we go, the greater, the higher perspective that we have. And these higher perspectives explain the cause of what's happening at the level of consciousness below it. So if we're manifesting a disease of some sort, or some other type of relationship problem, or we can't, you know, progress in our life with our business, in our ability to support ourselves, our families, and there just seems to be roadblocks everywhere in front of us, these roadblocks exist in a higher dimension of consciousness. And if we can go up into those levels and remove those blockages, then the energy can flow down through all the levels, and we can start to create results which are in harmony with our soul, that our soul's desire, and the things that we want to receive into our life. So that's sort of a pretty mind-blowing sort of presentation of a new model of existence, of reality, and how you fit into it. So now we're going to learn about what energy structures we have that fit into these different dimensions. So firstly, we have each dimension exists as a band of frequencies, which we call the energy field. And, you know, so here we see that close to the body, we have the etheric field, which is the field which contains the acupuncture meridians. Then it goes out into the emotional dimensions, the fourth dimension, then into the fifth dimension, which is the mental sphere, where we have our thoughts and our beliefs. And then we go out into the soul, further expanding out, where we experience the consciousness of love and joy and peace and abundance and those types of high frequency emotions and thoughts. So these energy fields, they capture the energy from the environment, and they feed that energy into a system called the chakra systems, which you've probably heard about. These chakras are like little vortexes that suck the energy in from the field and pull it into the body and distribute it down through the acupuncture meridians. And each of these different chakras do different things. They have different jobs, or they account for different aspects of our consciousness. So, for instance, in this particular diagram, it's a bit hard to see. It basically tells us that you can, if your chakra is in a balanced way, and you think of it as a spinning vortex, like a spinning top, and if it's nice and balanced and it's stable, you know, and for instance, if we look at the root chakra, which is at the base of our spine, we see that you start to experience emotions of being very grounded and balanced. You're very trusting, independent, and you've got, you know, no major problems as far as, you know, feeling safe in the world. But if the wheel is tipping to one side and it's slowing down, if it tips to the left, it means it's underactive and it's slowing down and going into a wobble. That slowing down wobble causes you to be bossy, to have a big ego. You have a lot of greedy tendencies, and you often develop violence as a way of dealing with your desire to achieve things. Through, when you don't get your way, you basically have temper tantrums, become violent. Now, if the wheel is wobbling through to excessive activity, then on this side, we start to see that you feel that you're frustrated, that you start to express a lot of fear, fear of not being worthy, fear of not having enough money, fear of not being safe, and being unsure and having various types of sexual insecurities. So that just relates to the one chakra, and we have 7 main chakras that are all having different functions. And so we need to understand that our emotions and our thoughts, if they're of a negative frequency, it causes these wheels to spin abnormally. They slow down or they speed up, they tip and they're out of balance. And that actually affects our perception of reality. And we start to behave differently because we're not getting the right energy coming down through the pipe into our mind, into our physical body. And it's finally through these meridians that they then capture this energy and direct it down through the energy channels into the nervous system and into the endocrine system. The nervous system and the endocrine glands are majorly responsible for the regulation of the physical body and the cells. And so this is how the energy is ultimately delivered as an electromagnetic wave that's been stepped down through various dimensions, like a step-down transformer, that then feeds the physical body with what it needs, with an electrical energy. So that electrical energy is used to then send to the cells, where the cells capture the electrical energy and they hold it in their cellular membrane. And the membrane's designed to hold electrons, and it acts as a reservoir of electricity that the cell can draw upon. And based on the ability to hold the charge, we have, like, a young healthy cell has about minus 70 millivolts of electrical charge in its membrane. And we see that as cells become inflamed or injured or damaged in some way, that their electrical charge drops significantly. And ultimately, they turn into unregulated cells, like tumor cells, or they go through cellular death. So every day we have millions of cells that are dying off as a result of this age-related, drop in energy. And hopefully we're making enough new cells to replace those ones. If there's more being made, then we can keep regenerating our tissues and our organs. But if it tips into the other way and we're not making enough quick enough, then we start to experience degeneration of the tissues and the cells and the manifestation of disease. And of course, we have cells that develop into tumor cells or malignant cells. So our immune system has to be functional enough to go around and to clear these tumor cells out of our body on a day-to-day basis. If the immune system doesn't have enough electrical activity and energy, then its ability to clear these, debris and tumor cells out of the body becomes compromised. And this is why ultimately we see the manifestation of degenerative diseases like cancer, arthritis, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, all because of this dropping off in the ability of the immune system to regulate itself due to the lack of functional electricity that's flowing down through these dimensions. So how does our consciousness get involved with this? We're talking about our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions as being like real things that actually can then change matter, the matter of our body. And this was beautifully demonstrated by a Japanese researcher called Marasumo Emoto, who did research on looking at water, and he could freeze the water under a microscope and it would create different types of crystals depending on what energy field or frequency that the water was exposed to. And what he found was that if you had a glass of water and you just wrote on a piece of paper, thank you, and you stuck it on the water, what he found was that after a period of time, he could take a sample of that water and freeze it under the microscope, and it would produce these miraculous, beautiful water crystals. And then when you wrote a different word, it would, like wisdom or truth or eternal or peace or I love you, it all created a different crystal because it was a different frequency. And that was simply because of the word being written on a bit of paper, you know, which is just an inanimate thing. But that word, that shape of the word, has a geometric energy which is transmitted as a frequency into the water. And it didn't matter what language you wrote it in, whether it's in Japanese, English, or Arabic, it produced the same crystal. So how amazing is that? And it just proves that, like, as we are beings which composed of roughly 70% water, that imagine the power of our own thoughts and our beliefs and our emotions have in changing the structure of our body every day, every moment, everything that we're doing, unconsciously creating changes in our body, of which is 70% water. One case here, we see that there was very polluted water from a dam or lake, and then they prayed over the lake and they sent love to the lake, and then all of a sudden the polluted water was turned into a beautiful crystalline water crystal, which was transformed through the act of prayer. So, you know, we have to understand that our prayers are very powerful. And even more so when we join together in a group of people, as you know, from biblical truth, that the more we are together, then the greater our ability to align our frequencies and our prayers into a stronger force. And this was very evidently, beautifully evident on the 5th of April this year, when all around the world, millions and millions of people became involved in a day of prayer, of sending love and gratitude to counteract all the fear that was being generated by the COVID virus. That was at the peak of the COVID virus situation. And what we see here is that they have the ability to test and measure the frequency of the Earth's electromagnetic field. And they call this frequency, which is roughly around 8 Hertz as an average, the Schumann's resonance. And here we see that on the measurement chart, that on a typical day, the Schumann resonance has these bands of frequencies going from 8 Hertz up to, say, 14, 25, 30, maybe up to 50. And then we see that on the day of prayer, that there's essentially a whiteout, because the amount of energy that was being produced and submitted into the atmosphere of the Earth basically was off the charts, couldn't even register it in every band of frequency possible, which proves the power of prayer and the power of our own consciousness, and how that can then create changes in physical matter, such as our bodies. So that's what I'm telling you, folks. I'm telling you that this new model of your consciousness as a divine, multidimensional being, that you can actually change your matter to one of health and vitality. You just need to know how to do it. I figured out how to do it because I actually healed myself of an uncurable disease. So it's possible, and people are doing it. So if I can do it and other people are doing it, you can do it. And now the beauty about this is that it's, rather than it taking a lot of time and effort and commitment, it's now that we have availability to certain technology and tools that make it easy for people in their busy days and busy lives to start to develop their access to frequency medicine that can clear a lot of these blockages that are causing the flow of energy to be decreased and the manifestation of disease. So the bottom line is that with this new model, that you are the creator of your life, okay? You are a God sovereign being of wisdom, power, and love. And you have to own it, because when you step into that, then you acquire the ability to magically undo a lot of the energetic blockages that are occurring in these upper dimensions, which are the causative effects of what's happening in the physical. So that you're basically, whatever energy that you're generating within you, within your thoughts and emotions, whatever you're projecting out into the world, can either be a healthy result or disease result based on your frequencies. You can either create joy or pain, peace or chaos, abundance or poverty. You know, it comes back to the beliefs, the thoughts, the emotions that you're projecting, and how those frequencies are allowing the flow of energy down into the body, or in fact blocking it because of the low frequency energies. So the next thing that you need to understand is that with this model, you can't go blaming anyone else that, you know, it's not your fault. Because when we understand that energy responds and we emit signals that send out into the world and then attract those same frequencies back into us, it's essentially the principle of whatever you are, whatever you give out from whatever who you are, you emit that out into the world, and the world then, or the universe, then sends those signals back. And it's a pretty ancient old principle. Whatever you put out, you get back. It's not rocket science. So this is simply explaining it in a more scientific-based language, which people can probably relate to at this time. So we are totally responsible for the results, such as manifesting a disease. I manifested a disease, not consciously, but subconsciously, because I had so much fear, so much unworthiness, so much fear of being judged, and fear of being a failure, fear of not having enough money, fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of losing control. Like, you know, I was a prime example of existing in a bundle of fear. And yet all these fears that were creating negative emotions like frustration and anxiety and shame and guilt and sadness, these are like toxic substances that we keep creating out of fear. And it was only when I was able to identify where these problems were, all these fears, and what traumas created them, that I could then start to manage to cure myself and to cure others as well. So we have immense power to be able to change our reality by removing these blockages, these fears, these anxiety, the anger, the jealousy, the arrogance, the depression. If we can just transform those negative energies, those frequencies, and allow the energy to flow through, we can generate a healing response in our body. And that's a beautiful thing to see and to be a part of. So how does the energy medicine work? Traumas, beliefs, fears, negative emotions, they all get stuck in the energy field, in the chakras, in the meridians, in these higher dimensions. And so the body gets starved of energy, and it basically goes into a state of degeneration. The first types of symptoms that we see are symptoms of fatigue. That's the classic. Everyone's tired. Why am I tired? Well, it's very simple. You're just not getting enough energy into your body because your higher dimensions are blocking it. So somebody's turned the tap off and there ain't no energy left. You're getting the drips. It's dripping through the tap down into your physical body. Imagine if we could unclog the pipe and turn it on full bore, and next minute you've got a ton of energy flowing down the tube. The other thing that happens with this lack of energy is you experience pain and inflammation. Now, typically, when energy is coming down through the pipe and into your body, into the meridians, we find that if there's a blockage in the meridian, that the energy will back up and it looks like hitting a wall, and then it builds up in that area. And as the energy builds up in that area, it creates pain. It's like a balloon that's sort of blowing up and getting more pressure and pressure. And next minute, you know, you've got a lot of tension and pain. And so acupuncture is where we stick a needle into that area, into that acupuncture point. It diffuses all the tension and all of the energy out of that area. And then the energy can flow through. And amazingly, there's no more pain and inflammation just by sticking a needle in. So we are energetic beings, and we need to understand that these blockages are being caused by us, with our emotions, with our thoughts, with our beliefs, and we're not accessing this divine loving energy that should be flowing down into the body, causing the other thing that we see very commonly is sleeping disorders. Most people, a lot of people are having sleeping problems these days, and this is purely an energetic problem. You know, I've got people that will take pills, sleeping, powerful drugs that knock people out, and the pills do nothing. They still have insomnia. And yet you treat the energy problem and bingo, within one night, they're sleeping all night through. So how does that work? The strongest drugs known to mankind can't even knock them out. And then one treatment of energy with the right frequency can actually cause them to sleep perfectly from that night, from the first treatment. Some of the results that we get through this energy medicine is mind-boggling, because we're getting to the actual exact cause. It's no good taking a pill to try and stimulate your chemicals in your body to make you go to sleep if the whole problem is due to the fact that you have an internal conflict within you that is creating a war that is going on in the background. And it doesn't matter what you do, your nervous system is jacked up through the Richter scale. You've got to resolve that war, that conflict, with the right energy. Get rid of those negative frequencies and dissolve them. So addiction and allergies, behavioral disorders in kids, emotional reactivity and mood disorders, mental confusion, all of these are classical signs that you have an energetic blockage in you, that you simply can't function in a normal way. Now the problem is that when these energies build up, it's like a layer. You put a layer on top of a layer, and each day you keep putting more and more negative energies on top of it. It turns into a solid energy mass, more or less like a tumor, and it becomes difficult to actually move. And that's when we start to see disease starting to happen. And as we get these more solid balls of energy stuck in the meridians or the chakras, it emits a signal, a more powerful signal, which is attracting the same energy back, because energy and frequencies work on a principle of resonance, right? So when something is the same frequency, then they vibrate together and they align up and they attract each other like a magnet. So if you're producing a lot of anger and a lot of sadness and you're beaming that out, then guess what? All of a sudden, you've got people coming into your life that are making you angry and sad, because that's exactly the frequency that you're emitting. And so you will attract that because you've altered your perception of reality, because the energy that's flowing through you is causing you to have a different perception of what frequencies are available to you. And therefore you're creating this whole reality through your own unconscious reactions. And so let's give an example. For instance, when you're a child or even an infant, you get exposed to various traumas. Might be that you get locked in a room, or that you get taken off your mother's breast, or some other type of shock or trauma where the child is basically felt to feel that they are not good enough. And that process of not being good enough creates a whole range of different negative emotions like anger, frustration, and sadness. And these emotions, the child is too young to know how to deal with them. So they all just get stored up in the child. And so what we see is that these stored emotions start to accumulate, different layers, as I said, and as it gets bigger and bigger, it sends out a stronger signal. And that stronger signal attracts more people and more circumstances to create the experience that you're not good enough to be loved. There's something wrong with you, mate. You know? And so then the child gets older and we start seeing that the child has unusual behaviors. And these behaviors are really designed to try and suppress their emotions, or to not be able to hold their emotions in check. So we see quite, violent behavior in some cases. But what we see is that the child starts to develop these unconscious beliefs that he is unworthy or she is unworthy, and not worthy to be respected or not worthy to be loved. So these behaviors become the identity, and it becomes the false personality of the child, that the child now has an ego nature, the development of the ego and the personality. which is designed to protect the child from feeling unworthy. And so we start to develop behaviours where we hide this unworthiness, we hide all our negative emotions, stop them from being expressed so that people will like us. And then hopefully people can then give us the needs that we need, such as money, power, respect, safety, love. And so the ego personality is designed to protect us from the fears that we have, whilst trying to manipulate the people and the environment to get us what we want. And so what we're finding is that the majority of our behavior these days is based on an unconscious construct of these deep-seated fears of unworthiness, of not being safe, and of not having enough. So that's a classical thing that most people have to come through this process to start to realize that all of these ego-based defense systems that cover up their fear and all of these behavioral changes that they're now creating in their life are actually the cause of why they are developing energy blockages. And it's these energy blockages that are creating relationship issues, inability to move forward with their life and create abundance, and of course, inability to create health and wellness as well. So here's a nice little image which shows you the difference between fear and love in the energy field of a person. Fear causes the constriction and the reduction in the flow of energy, and therefore it has a very low frequency and creates cellular degeneration. And in some ways, when we think of this COVID situation, which was such a media blow up of something that is really less significant than the normal flu that we have every winter. And it was beaten up into being, you know, the next plague that was going to decimate the earth. And so that level of fear basically caused many people to die of fear, because fear has is such a low frequency energy that it simply shuts down the immune system. And then the immune system, you know, you can't clean out all of the bacteria and the viruses that we're getting exposed to. And so people that were in that weakened state because of their own fear became susceptible to different types of infections, of which, you know, the coronavirus is one. But again, it doesn't have in its own right the ability to decimate people to any extent that what has been promoted. And so we have to think about, well, you know, what was the real purpose behind this whole COVID thing, and how and why did it develop? Did we just give our power away to the media and the authorities and become totally entrenched in a ball of fear that then reduced us to being able to be controlled, having lost our power and having also lost our health? So if we can stay aware of this and we can self-generate the feelings of love within inside us by focusing on being grateful for once, being and caring and loving with other people, and removing these fears, then our energy transforms into a huge, massive energetic field which pulls in energy in vast amounts and energizes our body, energizes our immune system, and we become resistant to infections. I call this, when people ask me, what's the most powerful nutrient that the body needs? I say, well, vitamin L. And they go, well, what's that? I haven't heard of vitamin L. It's vitamin love. Love is the most powerful vitamin. And so how do we get that love? Well, it's within us. It's in our higher dimension of consciousness. All we have to do is to get rid of the blockages, and then the energy of love can flow down into us from our higher self, from our soul, which is the source of love. And everyone has a soul. You are a soul. You're a living soul, but you're disconnected from that power and that energy of love because of the lower dimensional blockages in the emotional and mental level and the physical, etheric levels. So the goal of energy medicine is about doing two things. Take out the bad stuff, remove and transform the blockages that the ego belief structures have created out of pain, out of fear and deficiency. Remove the source of internal conflict that creates the resistance to the flow of energy. That's the first step. Get rid of the bad stuff and then magically put in the good stuff. Okay, increase the amount and flow of higher dimensional frequencies from your soul or your spirit, which includes love, joy, peace, compassion, abundance. Bring those high frequencies into your physical, emotional, mental bodies. And lo and behold, you restore and maintain your health and vitality. It's really not rocket science. Now, there's two main sources of energy blockages that you need to understand if you're playing the game of energy in this world, which is what everyone is doing without even knowing. So let's learn the rules. The first rule is that a lot of the energy blockages are caused from stuff that you create within yourself, as we've just been talking about, the ego and all of the different traumas and beliefs and fears and negative emotions that you've experienced in this life. That's what we call you've self-generated that yourself. The second cause is that there are external forces that can actually cause the blockages in these higher dimensions of consciousness. And some of these are soul contracts and negative attachments and implants and psychic cords. Now, what are these? These things are basically that when you are in any type of relationship, be it sexually or intimate or through some type of responsibility that you've taken on to help a person, or that you feel responsible to provide something for that person, the mere fact that you've created those connections means that you've made an energy connection, and that part of your soul has been transferred into that person and part of their soul has been transferred into you. So we call this an exchange of soul particles, and that allows an energy cord to exist between people no matter where they are on the planet. And so if that one other person is having a bad day and they're angry and they're frustrated and they've had a terrible day, then guess what? All of a sudden you start to feel angry and frustrated and you don't know what's going on, because it's not you at all. It's somebody else that has got an energetic cord that you and them have created through either intimate relationships or other relationships that is now affecting you. So this is a major thing. It's one of the first things that we do when we see a patient. We have to determine how many of these cords have they got. Now, I've seen people with over 120 cords. Can you imagine how much energy leakage is coming out? It's amazing. And when we get rid of these energy cords, you know, some of them the higher self wants you to keep because they're useful for your own internal development of your own stuff. But most of it can be cleared, and we can dissolve those cords, and we can get the soul particles to be transferred back into your soul and send back the other person's soul particles to them. And we can seal that so that you don't have that connection any further. And so now all of a sudden you're not like a leaky bucket, which has got 100 holes in it, leaking energy everywhere. So that's just the one thing. That's just soul contracts. Then we have negative attachments and implants which are basically like little transmitters that transmit out and attract negative energy into your body. And unless we can get rid of those implants, you keep attracting negative energy into your body. Psychic cords relate to people that have some type of, a psychic cord is where there's no soul particle transfer. It's purely a projection of consciousness to attack you or to want something from you. It could be like a sexual fantasy, for instance, or that they feel jealousy about something you've got, or angry and judgmental. So for instance, if I say, oh, look at so-and-so, you know, they're so stupid, you know, why do they keep doing that? Right? So that energy of judgment that I just created creates a beam of energy aimed like an arrow, like I've just shot an arrow directly at that person energetically. And that go bang straight into their energy field. That's what we call psychic cords or psychic attacks. And this is why, and this also relates to what we call karma. How much karmic trauma and other karmic stuff do you have to deal with because of past disagreements, past business failings, past breakups with your relationships? All of this creates a karmic energy trail, which is all linked to you. And then that's not even talking about your ancestral lineage, which is your parents, what your ancestors have passed on to you through your genetic DNA linkage. You know how we think that we get our blue eyes and our blonde hair and everything from our parents and from our ancestors? Well, guess what? You get all their negative energy and their emotions, and you get their fears and traumas as well. You get the whole lot. So unless you know how to clear that stuff out and how to stop it from invading your energy, you're continually getting triggered by these external factors. Other things include the dark archetypes, which exist in the fifth dimension, which are specific mental programs that are beaming out into the Earth's atmospheres, which are creating people to respond in a certain way. We have planetary influences such as astrology. Now, this astrology, people think, well, that's just a load of crap. Well, unfortunately, it's not. I wish it was. But when you do energy testing, you soon find out that these planets are having a significant impact on your health. And if you don't know how to deal with it, then you just keep getting wrecked. And you're wondering why you're getting triggered and manifesting all these symptoms. Then we have mass consciousness, which is essentially like the pain body of humanity. The geopathic stress, which is due to different electromagnetic grid lines that appear on the Earth, just like the acupuncture points and lines in the body. The Earth has acupuncture meridians. And also under the ground where there's water flowing, it produces a negative source of radiation. And this can be negative, have a negative frequency on our body. And then we have environmental electromagnetic frequencies from different devices, electrical smog, 5G, 4G, 3G, all of the different electrical frequencies from alternating currency, all having a negative effect on the body. And that's simply because we don't know how to change our relationship to these energies. Because we don't know, most people haven't got a clue that these things are affecting them. Now, once you become aware of it, then you can start to apply the energy that you have access to in your higher dimensions to change your relationship to these external forces. And these external negative energies, you can basically block their effect, and so that they don't have any negative effect. But you've got to know how to do it. So the main thing is that everything about you that you're experiencing in your life, everything that's happening to you right now has already happened in a higher dimension of consciousness. The only reason it's happening is because it's already happened in your higher dimension of consciousness, which is now starting to manifest in your 3D physical reality. If you've got a physical parasitic infection, it's because you have an energy distortion in these higher dimensions, which is allowing something or someone to suck off your energy in that higher dimension of consciousness. There's some type of parasitic energy substance or person that is affecting you at that level. And so therefore, the fact that there is this parasitic energy at the higher dimension allows you to then attract parasites at a physical level. If there was no parasitic energy relationship in the higher dimension, then your body would be resistant to developing a parasite. Does that make sense? It's only because of the parasitic energy that you are now walking around with that is manifesting your susceptibility of your body to have a parasite. And that goes with everything. It's like, for instance, if you've got toxic accumulation from chemicals or pesticides or heavy metals or radiation, it's because you're holding toxic emotions and negative thoughts and beliefs in the higher dimension. And those negative thoughts and beliefs and emotions are causing your body to be suppressed and weakened so that your detoxification programs that normally get rid of these toxins are not working properly. So you have faulty detoxification, and then that therefore makes you susceptible for the accumulation of these toxic compounds in your body. And you think, oh, gee, you know, I've got all these toxins coming in from my environment. Well, if you didn't have all this other toxic emotion and thoughts and beliefs, you would be resistant to that. Your body would be able to take them in and clean them out. It's only because it can't do that that you accumulate them and it becomes a problem. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys, because it all happens in a higher dimension of consciousness. And so in effect, we're trying to cut you out of the spider web of this external energy system that you are completely oblivious to. Here's a diagram that shows a person who has got specific problems in their energy fields. We have a number of different cords which are going straight into different chakras, the sacral chakra, the heart chakra, the crown, the third eye chakra. These would be, you know, connections to other people or places which are draining energy. Here we have cracks in the outer perimeter of the energy fields. We have holes. We have the accumulation of different emotions and fears and negative energies, all causing blockages in the flow of energy into the patient, into the person. So how does energy medicine have an effect? How can it improve our life? So basically, first thing is it can restore your physical, mental, emotional well-being and performance. That's the first thing. So, you know, if everyone could just do that, I think we'd be happy. Everyone would be thinking, great, I'm feeling wonderful, got plenty of energy, my relationships are good, I'm having an experience of the beauty of life and the beauty of love. That's a life worth living. So that would be our first strategy, just to get you well, just to get rid of all the garbage that's blocking you, so you can at least manifest a healthy, you know, stable life. That's step one. Step two is that if you keep on clearing all of this crap out of your energy bodies, you can start to manifest your soul's desire and life purpose. Previously, you wouldn't be able to do that. You wouldn't even be aware of what the hell is my life purpose. But after we clean you out and purify you, then your soul, your six-dimensional soul, can start to migrate and come down and exist in your physical body. Your six-dimensional energy can come down and start to live inside you. And then all of a sudden, you have this open expansiveness of your mind to take on new concepts and intuitive discernment that allows you to figure out what to do in your life. Whereas before you were just a complete, you know, dumb knuckle bumbling around trying to figure it out in a state of confusion. The third thing is that once we get to that level, we can then say, well, we're going to continue to clear ourselves up to allow our soul to become more and more embodied so that we can enhance the evolution of our soul and go up to experience the higher dimensions of the expression of love and peace and joy and abundance. So this is the end game. This is what we really want to try and get to, where we have this supremely, you know, beautiful way of living, that we can have such an accumulation of energy that nothing can affect us. And all we see now is the beauty and the wonder of life. And we want to express that and help other people to experience it. So that's our highest goal. But then fourthly is the final goal, is that when you increase your vibration, when you raise your frequencies and the soul embodies into your physical body, you change the way that people relate to you because of the energy that you're putting out. Your consciousness has now the ability to lift people up and to raise their consciousness purely by your presence. You don't have to go and try and force people to change, because they will change. Their consciousness will be lifted to a higher level purely because they're in your presence. And now you can create changes in not only you, but those that are around you. And if we have enough people doing that, we can change the consciousness of humanity on the planet and start to create amazing changes for the sake of everyone. So that's the big game. And that's where we can go with this energy medicine stuff. Now, this is a point where I can talk to you about this new technology called the Healy. Now that you understand this model of energy, how that you understand that you've got all of these energetic blockages, and I haven't actually said to you, well, you know, these are the techniques to get rid of them. Because the technique that I'm going to share with you is a device called the Healy. And what's so amazing is that for the first time, we have gotten a device that uses a technology that can scan a person's information in the higher dimensions, in the mental and emotional dimensions. That hasn't been able to be done before. Previously, all the energetic devices that have been available could only scan the physical and etheric layers. They couldn't find out what was the energy blockages in the mental and emotional dimensions. So the Healy is the exciting brand new technology. And of course, most of the blockages are in the mental and the emotional bandwidths of our consciousness. So that's where we would like to, share this opportunity with this new device, because basically, rather than sitting in allocating an hour of meditation time and doing all sorts of other different, developing other skills, you can treat yourself with this new device and you can get amazing quick results without having to learn years and years of study or years and years of meditation, which is what you have to normally do to clear this stuff. So I hope that is making sense. I
just want to add something there too, Mike, and I think, is an amazing tool that we can add already to a lot of people. I know we already have our meditation practice and our yoga practice, and I know for myself, I've just felt such an increase in my vibration over the last 2 to 3 weeks. So I've kept up with my regular meditation, my yoga practice, but this has just kind of taken things to the next level and kind of accelerated that whole process for me. And also sitting in front of a computer, I just wanted to add that usually I would get so drained, like sitting in front of the computer, I get really wiped out. And I feel that that's something that's really shifted for me as well, is that I can actually sit in front of the computer and not feel wiped out, which is a good thing.
Yeah, look, there's so many different ways that it can affect you. When you start to balance your energies and neutralize these negative frequencies, it's amazing. You feel it from day one, basically.
Definitely.
Some other symptoms take a little bit longer to improve, but people will no doubt feel reductions in pain and inflammation, their sleep, their energy, they're resistant to different stresses, is essentially happens from day one. And so what I'd like to share with you is that this technology called the Healy, it has an unusual form of technology in it, which allows it to break itself into the mental and emotional dimensions. And so this is the real key point. This is a Russian technology that was developed by a guy called Nikolai Kozyrev. He didn't actually develop it. His theories, his physics theories of time as a force allowed his disciples to develop it. And so this is like a curved chamber that allows, like you can actually get them as big as a person so that you can go into them and sit inside them. Basically, what they found was that it shields you from the effects of the Earth's electromagnetic field, and the waves, the emotional and the mental waves that we emit, they bounce off the sides of the chamber and they then neutralize each other and form what we call a scalar field, which is what we call a 0-point field. So the 0-point field is where the two frequencies meet each other and cancel each other out, thus creating a neutral point where there is no charge, there's no polarity, and there's a standing wave that occurs, and that standing wave exists beyond time and space. So you've basically broken through the fourth dimension into the fifth dimension. And so they did some studies where they had people in 12 different countries. They had 5,000 participants go through these chambers in 12 different countries. And they had one guy who was sitting in Russia who was reading out information just off from whatever text. And then the test was that the people in the other chambers in the other parts of the world could write down exactly what this person was reading in other countries. So basically it allowed people to telepathically access the information that this person was putting up into the field. And they had a 95% accuracy in the transfer of information telepathically. simply because they were able to break through that fourth dimensional time barrier and into the fifth dimension. So this is a crazy new thing. It's never been put together in an instrument where it combines itself in the Healy with what we call a quantum sensor. So the quantum sensor is positioned, it's a circuit that basically sends up your energetic signature. It takes your energetic signature and sends it up into the information field, into the fourth and fifth dimensions. It then compares it and says, oh, okay, you've got all this crap stuck in your fourth and fifth dimension. Now I'm going to compare that with a database of frequencies, and I'm going to compare the frequencies with the distortions in your fourth and fifth dimension. And now we can pick, based on the resonance between these two frequencies, we're going to capture those frequencies and now send them to you in real time. So this is crazy sort of stuff. It's mind-blowing tech, and no one's ever cracked it before, and put it into a device that end users can actually use. Like previously, when they first developed this technology about 10 or 12 years ago, they developed a system called TimeWaver, which again was developed by the inventor, Marcus Schmincke, and they developed that unit for professionals and practitioners. So over the last 12 years, there's been over 3,000 or 4,000 people that have been using the TimeWaver devices in their clinics. They've treated over 500,000 people, and the results are mind-blowingly fantastic. And so they knew that they had cracked it, and they wanted to create it so that it was available to everyone. And so that's how they developed the Healy. And the Healy is now available, and it's only been available now for about in Australia for the last couple of months. So it's pretty exciting. And of course, we have our friend Albert, who continues to reinforce this whole technology, saying that the future of medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. And so this is the dawn. The future is now here. The Healy is here. And it's been able to not only check for frequencies in the physical body or in the acupuncture system, but to go up into the fourth and fifth dimension to access the data from those which are creating the problem. And so these frequencies basically do two things. Here on this right-hand side, we have a frequency called frequency D, and then we have another frequency called frequency E. And you can see that the E frequency is the exact mirror image or opposite of the waveform of frequency D. And so when you have the exact opposites coming in together, it neutralizes it into this 0 point, right? Which is actually what we've been talking about. So if this frequency is associated with inflammation, and we put in an anti-inflammation frequency, then it neutralizes the frequency so there's no more inflammation. And so it doesn't take very long for the energy then to shift in the cells, because the cells respond to the frequencies of the energies. And next minute, we have a reduction of inflammation. And on this side, we see that these are two frequencies here, A and B. They have exactly the same frequency, but they're not the opposite. Here, these ones were the opposite waveform, which essentially means that it's out of phase. Here, they're in phase and they're vibrating together in resonance. And so 1 + 1 = 3, and we get the additive, constructive buildup of the positive energy. So what the Healy's basically doing is it's doing this stuff here. It's taking the negative energies and neutralizing them, and then it's putting the positive energies into the body, and it's combining with the body to create a new template of function, which has a higher energy level, which is perfect for those particular cells and tissues. And this is the guy who created it. His name's Marcus Schmincke. He's a physicist, and he spent 12 years as a monk actually in India. So he's seen both sides of the story. He came out of his spiritual existence in order to integrate his science together with spirituality, and he was able to come up with this quantum sensor. And already, he's had such brilliant results, as I mentioned before. It's a class 2 medical device in Germany, and he met up with a number of people that were experts in the field of frequency. So Nuno Nina is a practitioner who's been working in the energy medicine field for over 25 years. He's developed a whole range of different frequency protocols that have had astounding success in his clinics. And so him and Marcus got together and they came up with the Healy. And they now put all of Nuno Nina's frequency programs into the Healy. And then there's my friend Carolyn McMakin, who I introduced the frequency-specific microcurrent into Australia with 20 years ago. And then we have a number of other highly qualified medical doctors that have been working with frequencies, all providing additional expertise into creating a whole database of frequencies, 144,000 frequencies that they have to compare into your energy field to see which ones are actually required and necessary. And so the way that there's two ways that these frequencies are delivered with the Healy. And one of the ways is through what we call microcurrent. Now, microcurrent is a very low level of electrical current. What we call micro, meaning it's a microamp, 10 to 500 microamps. You can't really feel it unless you turn it up to about 500 to 1,000 microamps. Now, this is the level of electricity that the cell actually uses. Remember how we were talking about how the cell accumulates this electrical energy from the meridians and it stores up those electrons in the cell membranes? So that's exactly what this is. This is the microcurrent. And when the cell is fully charged up, it then functions by sending these electrons into the mitochondria of the cells. And these mitochondria are shuttled through the inner and outer wall of the mitochondria, where it then creates a flow of hydrogen ions, which are used to exchange these electrons to create a substance called ATP, adenine triphosphate, which is the chemical that is responsible for chemical energy inside the body. So here we have the interface of electrical energy being converted into chemical energy inside every cell through the effect of frequencies and electrical current. Now, when that happens, when you run this microcurrent into the cells, it causes the ATP production to go up by over 500%. Like this is crazy sort of stuff. It increased protein synthesis, which is the cellular response to some type of stimulus is to make proteins that are required to activate certain functions, like to enhance the transport of different nutrients, to transport hormones, to activate the immune system. All of these proteins is how the cell responds to a stimulus. And so we see increased response to a stimulus by 70%, increased amino acid transport by 40%. Amino acids are used to create the proteins which the cell needs to respond to the environmental stimulus. And then we see that it has a specific enhancement of the immune cells, the lymphocytes. So this effect of the microcurrent is well known, it's well established, it's well publicized in different scientific journals. And what happens is that when you provide the frequencies in the form of microcurrent, then you combine the energy and the information together. And this is the secret. This is the secret of energy medicine. Getting the right frequency, which can neutralize the harmful frequencies. And this is some case studies that Carolyn McMakin did when she was treating severe cervical spinal trauma. And these patients have all over whole body pain, on average for 8 to 10 years. 8 to 10 years of chronic all over body pain, unresponsive to treatment in any way. And so these end-phase fibromyalgia patients came into Carolyn's clinic, and she was fortunate enough to meet a guy who worked for the National Institute of Health, who said, well, send me some blood and I'll test it for you and we'll see what this frequency-specific microcurrent is doing with the blood. And so what they did is they found that with these individual treatments, that these substances called cytokines, like interleukin-1 and tumor necrosis factor alpha and interleukin-6, these are all pro-inflammatory substances, which massive inflammation. And so we see here with one treatment over a period of 90 minutes that the level of interleukin-1 went from 400 down to basically less than 50. And we see this on the first treatment, and then it raised slightly a week later, but it only got up to this level, and then it went back down to almost zero, and then on the third treatment it went to zero. So these are different patients, all showing the same pattern. And of course, this level reduction, this reduction of these inflammatory cytokines is unheard of. You can give people a cortisone injection and you won't get this reduction in the interleukin levels that rapidly. It's just not even, it's unheard of. And so when Carolyn came over and we introduced the frequency-specific microcurrent to Australia, we ended up talking to some PhD professors at Sydney University, and we wanted to do some animal trials to see how the frequencies could be proven using a standard pharmaceutical model for inflammation. And this is where you put an inflammatory chemical on the ear of the mouse, and you basically, an hour later, you measure the swelling, and that basically tells you the degree of inflammation and therefore how effective is the drug at inhibiting inflammation. So what we found was that when we used two specific frequencies, which was for inflammation, which is the frequency 40 hertz, with the frequency for the immune system, which was 116, that we got a 70% reduction in the swelling. And then also when we used the frequency for inflammation, which was 40, with the frequency for the skin, which is 355 hertz, when we combine those frequencies, we got basically a 65% reduction in inflammation. Now, just so that you know, the standard anti-inflammatory drugs that are used for treating inflammation could only produce a 30% reduction in this model. If you've got a drug, a pharmaceutical drug that gets a 30 to 40% reduction in inflammation, then you've got a world-beating drug. These frequencies were applied to the mice for 4 minutes, and an hour later they were measured. They had a 70% reduction. Unbelievable. So we have the proof that these frequencies are powerful and can do amazing things, not only in rats, but in humans as well. And of course, you can use these frequencies to treat your pets, which are very responsive. So basically, the Healy is treating you on your physical level, your mental, emotional level. It's treating your meridians. It's treating your chakras. It's treating your energy fields. It's treating your brain. You can directly enhance your learning and memory and cognitive function by using frequencies. Frequencies can just about do anything because everything is energy. Everything is energy, and it's just a matter of finding the right frequency. As Albert said, just find the right frequency and then you create the reality that you want. So that's all we're doing. And now we have a device that is doing it better than ever before, than anything on the planet, getting into the mental and emotional fields. This guy, Nunanina, he developed the Healy gold frequencies, which he's put together. So there's like over, there's like 100,000 frequencies that he puts into this package. And he breaks them up into different categories. Basically, if you just bought the lowest priced Healy unit, which is called the Healy Gold, you would get the gold cycle from Nunanina, just that alone. And then, of course, they've got higher models. They've got other models where you add some additional frequency programs. So the Holistic Health, which is a little bit more expensive. It has 8 more programs, which include ones that are specific for pain, for bioenergetic balance. Mental balance is really amazing because it's used for acute stress. So if you're having a really shit of a day, you whack that on, put mental balance on, and you'll basically, within minutes, you'll start to feel the calming effect coming down. Meridians 1 and 2, sleep programs and skin programs. These are all fantastic. The sleep one particularly very, very powerful. It's working essentially from the first day. And then if you want to get some more programs, you buy the next edition, which is called the Healy Holistic Health. It's got 6 more programs. These are more on learning, enhancing memory and function, have incredible effects. People that are under very, severe stress at work, they just whack on those learning programs and they can just function all day in front of the computer and not get zapped. And they crank out high quality clarity thinking the whole day long. Fitness is a huge thing, which people are basically trying to improve their performance. So how do I improve performance? Okay, well, let's try and unblock the energies that are causing a lack of performance. That wouldn't be too hard to work out, would it? So yeah, we have frequencies to enhance performance, enhance your ability to perform on the job. We have frequencies for beauty, frequencies for the chakras. And this is an amazing program. It's called the Protection Program. And this contains a whole lot of stuff in there that basically protects you from the planetary influences, the astrological effects, which are off the chart at the moment. So a lot of people are starting to feel very unhinged and feeling a lot of energetic, emotional disturbances at the moment because there's a lot of planetary energies that are combining together to create a lot of distortions in the electromagnetic field of the earth, which directly affects us. So I recommend that protection program to be run, pretty much every day, as a protection. But it's also covering things from infections to influences from other people, psychic attacks and stuff like that I mentioned. So it's fantastic. And then there's the final product, which is called the Healy Resonance. Now this one has all of the programs, the same as the Holistic Health. The Holistic Health has all of the programs, but there's something that this one does that the other ones don't do. And that is that these 3, the Gold, the Holistic Health, and the Holistic Health Plus, they all use the microcurrent to deliver the frequencies into the body and into the etheric layers. The Healy Resonance has the ability to do other things. I'll just summarize it here. It can scan the energy structures to detect the distortions. So in other words, what that means is that you can select to do a scan, and that will then immediately go and assess you and produce a report of the top 5 different defects and distortions in your energy field. All of the other 3 units, they can't do that. The other 3 units, you have to select the menu for which program that you want to run. The Healy Resonant unit, you don't have to do that. It will do its own scan of your energy field and tell you what are the 5 ones that are abnormal. Excuse me. Often this is a different thing than what you're thinking about. For instance, you might say, oh, I've got pain, I'm going to use the pain program. But then what happens when you do a scan, it comes up that, okay, you've got chakras, or you've got meridians, or you've got other job-related programs. You think, well, how the hell is that job program going to affect my pain? And it's because you've got some type of emotional anxiety with your job that's creating the pain in your body. And so you may not have got that connection if you're just selecting, the menu yourself. So this is why the resonance unit is probably the best one, because it does this scan. But once it does the scan, it then selects the frequency programs that you want. It then broadcasts those frequencies directly into your energy field. You don't have to connect yourself with little cords anymore. Now, the other units, you have to have little leads that are connected to different straps or electrodes, and that runs the microcurrent frequencies into your body. You don't need that with the resonance unit. Just directly beamed or broadcasted like a radio station into your into your emotional and mental fields. And the beauty about this is that you don't even need to be present. You can be anywhere in the world and those frequencies will be delivered to you. Just like you're getting a phone call or you're tapping into the internet. Your body can receive these frequencies through the energy field directly into your own energy field. So you can treat people from a distance, like your parents or your friends living on the other side of the world. You can actually beam these frequencies to them. All you have to do is to load up their details and get their energetic signature into the app, the application that you use it with. So that's an amazing thing. The final thing, which is even more amazing, is that you can get the resonance unit and you can hold a substance on top of the unit, and then the Healy will imprint the digital signature of that substance, and you can save it into your device. And then you can send that substance to you as a digital signature. So, you know, if you've got like any sort of product, you know, essential oils or nutritional products, herbs, whatever, you can load it up and then you can beam that to you as an energetic frequency. So those are the reasons why the resonance unit is the most effective. So that's really the 4 units you get to choose from. Obviously, if you're more interested in these features, then the resonance unit is by far the best one to choose.
And I just wanted to show how tiny it was too. So it's this small and it's got a little clip so you can actually click that on you. And I think, David, you've got the wristbands on, have you? Can David hear me? David? Yeah. So he's giving himself the one of the other cycles, which goes with the wristbands, or as Mike said, you can just clip this on and use the vibrate. I like to say it's like receiving Reiki. I feel like I'm receiving a healing session when I've got the vibrate running through the resonance. So I just wanted to show everybody how tiny it is. So the device is the same, it's just the different software that's on the device. And people can upgrade at any time as well. So yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, so even if you start off at the gold level, you can, and if that's all you can afford, you can upgrade later to the higher packages. But it really is worthwhile considering this is an investment in your health and your well-being and your soul's evolution. And so it's really something that you would try to find the money to get if you could. I'll just go through this case study, which is give you a demonstration of what sort of results you can get. This is with a 50-year-old woman, 54-year-old woman with menopausal symptoms, fatigue, flushing, mood fluctuations, chronic insomnia for many, many years, chronic abdominal pain due to adhesions from surgery due to an ectopic pregnancy, spinal degeneration in the C2 to C5, just below the neck, causing spinal stenosis, which is the constriction of the spinal canal. So it gets smaller and smaller, and then it causes inflammation in the cord. And that then is causing left-sided facial paralysis and numbness, and weakness and neuralgia in the left arm. She also had a history of an autoimmune disease, which is called Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune thyroid disease. So quite a complex picture, a complex patient in this sense. Now, enter the Healy resonance scanning function. We just used the recommendations that the scan provided, which resulted in a resolution of chronic insomnia from the first night of therapy. So you take a person who's got a history that is so severe, and in one night, you've completely got that person to sleep through the whole night, whereas it was basically something they couldn't do. So regular maintenance treatment over the next few weeks resulted in a complete cure of all traces of insomnia, which then has been a lifelong problem that was obviously exacerbated by the menopause. Menopause creates a much more severe worsening of the insomnia. After 3 weeks of daily use, all of her abdominal pain due to adhesions is completely gone, as is her facial numbness and arm neuralgia. Her energy and moods are stable, and she says that she feels like having been reborn again. She believes she is now more calm and present to enjoy smelling the roses of life all around her. So, you know, like if you get out of pain and you start sleep, then all of a sudden your body starts to repair itself. And, you know, even though you've got this chronic scar tissue and adhesions and blockages in your spinal column, your body can start to regenerate itself because you've simply taken away the main causes of the pain and inflammation by putting in the frequencies. So it's a brilliant demonstration of just what can happen in a very complicated case. Now, a survey that Healy did, they basically asked their people that bought the Healy, are you happy with the results? And the outcome of the study basically said that 4% of the people found that there was no change in their state of health. 4%. The majority had moderate to high results, and 18% had slight improvements. Now, in energy medicine, as I said to you earlier, there's a whole stack of things that are causing external problems and internal blockages. Now, the Healy doesn't treat everything. There are certain things that the Healy can't do that an experienced energy healer will have to help you to develop your understanding of how to heal yourself about. But the Healy will basically treat you and get rid of all of these bottom blockages that are causing the emotional and mental dysfunction and the physical manifestation of those diseases and symptoms. So it's not 100%, you know, cure of everything on the planet. No, it's balancing these energetic imbalances, which allows the body to then self-heal itself because it has more energy flow coming down the pipe, getting into the physical body. And even though it can do that very well, there are some things that you still need a practitioner for that will then have to get rid of those other energy blockages that are a little bit more complicated and they have different frequencies that the Healy hasn't got. But that's only for the more severe, more difficult sort of cases. All right. So, okay, the cost versus the value. It really can be, you can be the richest guy in the graveyard. Without health, there is no wealth. But the bottom line is that this allows you to basically become your own professional self-healing practitioner. It's like having a practitioner in your pocket that you can basically treat yourself and allow the Healy device, particularly the Healy resonance device, to do the scanning for you. You don't even have to pick the treatment from the menu. So it's time for people to take back their power as a divine sovereign being of freedom and love. Because when we clear these blockages in the mental and emotional fields, it allows the divine energy of love from the soul to come down through and to reside in your physical body. And that's when you have the feeling and the experience of love. Otherwise, it's all in your head. I know, I've been there. I was a really spiritual, kind, loving person in my head. I didn't have any feeling. I had no sensation. I had no feeling of the love. That only came after I cleared all these blockages, and then the soul was able to become embodied into the physical. Then I had the manifestation of the feeling of waves of love, waves of blissful contentment that just make you want to smile. That's what love is. It's not the thought in your head. And yet the head is the problem, because that's all of the ego bullshit that we've created, and we've stored it up in those higher dimensions. So it's time to be part of the solution, folks, for the sake of humanity and for the sake of the planet. And if you're not being part of the solution, then what are you? You're part of the problem. So I would obviously help you to take advantage of this incredible breakthrough. It's priceless. It's a real gift. And then, of course, we have our old mate, Nikola Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So he was on the money. He tapped into the electric scalar waves of the earth. But we, as beings, are a quantum device. Our own consciousness is more powerful than any device, more powerful than any Healy. When we learn how to clear and use the Healy to get rid of these obstructions, and even like what Nat was saying, it helps you perform, it helps you in your yoga, it helps you in your meditations. Basically, it gets rid of all of the interference so that whatever you do, you can do more effectively. That's when your frequency will rise. That's when you'll experience these higher states of consciousness. And then it's a bit like a hot air balloon. You take off. Your consciousness rises just because you got rid of all the baggage. And now you can self-heal yourself. You don't need to depend on other people. You can take back your power and be a sovereign being. So that's a good life. And I hope that really empowers you to explore this and to access this marvelous frequency. And all you have to do is talk to the person who invited you, and they'll provide you with the ways and means of connecting so you can access the incredible Healy device. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, Mike.
My pleasure.
Sharing your amazing wisdom and science behind it all.
It's a bit mind-blowing for people that don't know anything about it, but I apologize for blowing your brains. Certainly gives you a lot to think about. And, you know, of course, if you do decide to get involved, you have people like Nat, who's an expert in the area, and myself that provide ongoing training and education for people as well.
Great.
We know that Healy's got you intrigued, so head on over to ChooseHealy.com to see tons of Healy testimonials, hear reviews on the Healy technology, and how to easily get your hands on this game-changing and disrupting opportunity to support you, your family, your community, your clients, and your patients. We look forward to you scheduling a time to experience the Healy Resonance device from wherever you are. So head on over to ChooseHealy.com to receive all the information you require and to schedule your Healy Resonance experience today. You'll be glad you did. Get ready for the new paradigm of affordable energy medicine. It's here today and waiting for you. ChooseHealy.com.